Now to a state Supreme Court decision that could have huge implications on the people who run those ankle monitoring companies, specifically when they're not reporting when someone breaks the rules.
This all has to do with a murder-suicide that happened in St. Francisville. In fact, it shocked that small community there. Our Chris Rosado is here to explain what's new in this. Chris.
Right, well, workers at two electronic monitoring companies were handed down criminal charges because they failed to notify police when Marshall Rayburn, outfitted with an ankle monitor, repeatedly breached the perimeter of his wife's home, which he was ordered to stay away from. Months back, a court of appeals said those workers cannot be charged, but a new ruling from the state Supreme Court says, oh yes, they can. About 3 years ago, Marshall Rayburn went against a court order to stay away from his wife Peggy and murdered her while she was in her home. Marshall then turned the gun on himself, taking his own life. Even one of their neighbors was shot during the encounter while they were trying to break it up. We learned today that neighbor is doing fine. But soon after it happened, workers at two ankle monitoring companies were charged with negligent homicide, with prosecutors saying they should have notified police when Marshall's ankle monitor went off on multiple different days. The workers appealed, and the First Circuit sided with them, saying they could not be criminally charged. But Wednesday, the state Supreme Court ruled they actually can. District Attorney Sam DeQuilla is prosecuting the case.
Yeah, we're really excited. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You know, it was just a hard road to start off with to get everything going on that, but we're really excited at the decision of the Supreme Court.
DeQuilla says the Supreme Court's ruling will bring the case back to where it left off.
We're going to go ahead and bring it back before the judge, and she can go ahead and set a new trial date. So it just goes back into the stack of cases that are ready to be set for trial.
The case ended up sparking legislation from lawmakers this past regular session to make changes to the state's law and bring more accountability to monitoring companies. The bill is currently waiting for the governor's signature.
Well, that gives the defense an argument of, hey, this wasn't clear before.
We asked defense attorney Franz Borgart, who's not part of the case, to weigh in. He explained how by breaching his boundaries, Marshall was not breaking the law, but rather a court order. And even if the monitoring company had notified the sheriff, deputies would not have been able to do anything about it either. Borgart says once back in court, the district attorney will need to prove two things.
So number one, had they done something, would it have stopped the murder? Number two is, had they called law enforcement, the sheriff's office, the police? Would the police be in a position to do anything to stop the murder either? Because at the end of the day, an order from a court to monitor someone is a bond condition or a probation condition. It's not a law.
So Borgart says another thing to consider is monitoring companies looking at this and asking themselves why they would want to do business here. If something goes south, they could be criminally liable for it. Liz, Greg, back to you.
Very interesting one there. We'll watch it as it goes through.